let's add the rest of the middle ground, the rest of the trees on the opposite side of the water here on our left side. So I'm going through with the same technique as we did on the right side. We just finished it up. We're swiping up with our detailed brush and adding those kind of faraway trees and then bringing them forward, getting a little bit bigger as we come forward. And then our fan brush, yet again, we're just adding the pine tree details here really quickly because we already did the same thing on the right. So just match that on your left. And if you want to have some varied heights there, just kind of play around with what you'd like that to look like. Fill it in as much as you would like so that it looks more bushy around the base of those trees there. And then make sure that layer is super, super dry because we're going to go ahead and push that middle ground back just a little bit. So not too much paint on this, mostly water. It's very soft, this glazing. So hopefully by now you're getting familiar with the glazing and how much paint is used. And we don't want to be too foggy because now we're starting to bring the eye towards us. So let's go in with just a touch of paint, and mostly the mister is going to do the trick. And then we're just going to take the same glazing technique, the watered down white paint and a flat brush here, and I'm just starting to kind of build in a shoreline, add some detail to my little river that I've got going here. We want to leave the reflection that we've built in the trees and the sky, so we don't want to cover all that up. But as we know with glazing, it may seem like it's a little too foggy right at first, but as you continue to work it in, it becomes more and more transparent as it dries and as you kind of work it together. And as you use that flat edge of your flat brush, you can kind of see, you can make some cool little water techniques, little ripples in the river maybe. So play around with that. As you can see, I'm adding in that effect there, and just finish up where you want your water to be. If you want to bring your water line just a little bit closer to the ground there, that's when you want to do that. And I am going to add some even bigger trees here to the foreground. So these are going to be the biggest trees, the longest reaching up highest on my canvas here. I'm going to add a few on either side just to kind of complete the forest that we are portraying here. And that same technique with my detailed angled brush, starting with the trunk, but now obviously just a little bit bigger, and press those in. I'm going to do a few small ones here. And these are going to be the most detailed trees out of all the other trees. So we are going to do the same technique, but just take your time, slow it down. Just really be mindful of where you're adding your branches, how tall each tree is. These will be the cleanest trees. So that same fan brush, just nice little swipes to the side, nice little branches will emerge. And just like I said, don't rush these trees because we want them to be nice and clean. Kind of a varied size. You don't want it to look like all the same from top to bottom. You want kind of a branch to stick out here, a branch to stick out there. Don't, obviously don't make it look messy, but you do want it to be random. You want it to be, if you take a look at any forest, there's lots of different elements sticking out at you, and it's mostly random and just kind of, there's interesting branches that aren't exactly straight. Trees don't stand up straight. There's angles in there. So to lean into that and just the asymmetrical side of nature, just try to be okay with that. Don't take away those cool details that we see naturally. And I'm thinking I'm going to put one last big one right here in the front, and real close to that one behind it. So just kind of make the pine tree, the branches and everything kind of stick out a little bit farther as we get closer. Like we've been saying, that's going to be my closest tree, that last one I'm adding in there. So the biggest swipes I'll be using on that one. I'm just going to finish up my shoreline, make sure I'm happy with the shape of it jetting out there, make sense with how big the trees are, and make sure there's enough ground around them. And then I'm going to add a detail that we didn't add to any of the other trees, which is that light orange color mixing with my gray. I'm just going to be kind of doing that same branch technique, but just on the bottom half of these foreground trees, because the fire that we're going to add, like I mentioned earlier, would be kind of illuminating with orange these trees that are really close. But the ones that are a little farther away, more on the outside, those wouldn't be touched. So try to keep in mind Where does it make sense for these effects that we're bringing into play? Where does it make sense for them to live? All right, so I added that orange detail in and it's looking really good. So the last step that we're going to do is add our fire. So that'll be our last video and we'll get into the final details and the foreground fire. I'll see you then.